Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm here with the one, the only Stephen Kick of Nightdive Studios. Welcome, Stephen.
Hey, Locke. Always a pleasure.
We've been clamoring to get you on the show, and we're talking Star Wars today. I think both of us are fans of Star Wars, and with the remaster of Dark Forces, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of chat about what goes into a remaster like this. But first, let's just get a little bit of background on your history with Star Wars. Were you a Star Wars kid growing up?
Well, my dad was actually a Trekkie,
Oh, wow.
but we had the Star Wars in the house. So my first experience, of course, was with the original trilogy. But my history with Dark Forces is kind of funny. I remember in 1995 we were going to get our very first computer, and there was a copy of Doom shareware that
Nice.
I tried to sneak into the cart. And I remember it going, across the conveyor, and my mom just instantly just going, "Wait, what is this?" Picking up the blood red box with the demons and the blood and everything, and seeing my dreams just kind of dissipate. And she put that back, but made a compromise and let me get Star Wars Dark Forces instead.
Oh, I mean, not a bad trade-off. It's pretty good. Like, you're both shooting things. One just is in hell and one is in space. So, that's a great anecdote. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Did you eventually get to play Doom?
Yeah, but not for many years after
Right.
that. My parents were, actually incredibly strict about the kinds of content that I consumed back then. So, there was no ESRB, but the
Right.
ratings had that little thermometer that showed
This
you
one's
how violent
spicy.
this one's super hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you started, Dark Forces was, probably one of your first shooters you played with your first computer. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, take me through a little bit of yeah, why were you interested in I mean, might be an obvious question, but why were you interested in remastering Dark Forces?
Well, seeing as it was my first game, it just had a very, very special place in my heart. I remember getting stuck on the third level like everybody else did in the
Mhm.
Anode City, having to go to the store, buy the strategy guide because no internet back then,
Yep.
completing the game, feeling very accomplished, and then just being unbelievably hyped for when Dark Forces Jedi Knight got
Yep.
announced. Um, that I think changed the trajectory of my life because it was at that point where I became so excited about something that I would consider myself a real fan at that point.
Yeah.
So when Night Dive was started, I think Dark Forces was very high up on that list of games that I wanted to revisit. And there's a long story about when Disney acquired Lucas,
Mhm.
and I snuck into, actually, I think it was at E3 when we met.
Really?
It was, like, later that night, I snuck into the Disney party, the Disney
Nice.
Lucas party, and, basically made myself present to, Bill Roper at the
Ooh,
time,
nice.
and basically begged him to, let us re-release Dark Forces on Steam because up to that point, it had not been made available on either that platform or GOG.
Oh, wow. So you were responsible for getting that initial release up, the digital version, eh?
Well, I think I lit the fire.
Mhm.
That was, I don't doubt, in their plans all along, because eventually that whole catalog did come out. But I had
Yeah.
conversations with Disney and Lucas before those games came out and offered our services.
Yeah.
But they opted to do it themselves, and you know, they had every right to do so, and they did a really good job.
Totally. Now, I mean, with it being a first person shooter, definitely a great fit for the Kex engine. Did that help conversations at all in getting this remaster going?
Well, with a lot of our games, it was just a matter of timing. I
Mhm.
think, we had approached Disney previously about doing something like this. And I think that after Quake and Quake 2 came out and those games were received the way that they were, it really put Nightdive on the map for a corporation the size of
Yeah.
Disney. And I feel like they were probably felt a lot more confident in our abilities and our ability to take something that prestigious and do it right.
You're mostly overseeing things and making creative decisions, and most of the people I've been speaking with are in the trenches, like coding, doing art, that sort of thing. I know you have an art background, but yeah, what's your sort of day-to-day like on a project like this?
Well, I think another big part of this project and its success kind of came down to timing because, as you know, when we did games like Turok a number of
Mhm.
years ago, we didn't have an art team that could go through and remaster the art the way that it probably should have been. We always had a very strong engineering foundation, and
Right.
that's why the games are so good still, is because they run smooth, they're highly optimized, and they have all those quality of life features that just make them enjoyable to revisit. But with Dark Forces, we've got this amazing art team that got assembled that had the specialty of going back to those, sprite-based graphics
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
really putting everything that they could into them to make them more appealing, I guess, or just
Yeah.
sharper, or just more recognizable. And, yeah, they really did. They absolutely crushed it. And like you said, as having an art background, I think that was the most important thing for me because I knew the engineering team could handle it.
Right.
They've been doing this for many years now, and they're one of the best when it comes to doing remasters of this type. But this was a great opportunity for our art team to really kind of spread their wings and show everybody what they could do.
What were some of the considerations that you wanted to see in this in terms of art? What were some of the, like, things you put in the design bible, or just like, "Hey, guys, we've gotta hit this, this, and this." Was there anything that stuck out or that came to the forefront immediately?
Well, my biggest thing, maybe not from an art perspective, but just from gameplay, was being able to, look around with the mouse
Mhm.
or the controller. That full freedom of movement that you have with a traditional first-person shooter was really important.
Totally.
And I know Sam went above and beyond to make that happen. From an art perspective, I think my biggest surprise and the thing that I'm most pleased about was the remade cinematics.
Yeah. I'm talking with Bren later today, and I'm really, really eager to get into that because are those are beautiful. They're something else. They're really, really interesting. Can you just take us through what he did?
Yeah, Bren's a really interesting guy. I'll be interested to hear what he says, but he that's just like another example of me finding people just in the random corners of the internet that ended up being superstars. When we were doing Quake 2, id Software had approached us and said, "Hey, we want to redo all the cinematics like this."
Yeah.
And they showed me a fan remake of one of the cinematics on YouTube. It's like, wow, this is really good. Well, I'm just gonna go and try to find that guy, you know? And, it turned out to be Bren, but it was really hard to track him down. There was no, contact information on his YouTube channel, there's no portfolio page. He had a Twitter account that he hadn't been on in many years. I did track him down to a school in Canada, I think.
Dude, I was gonna say, call me. He literally lives like 5 blocks from me. It's
That's
the
right.
weirdest thing. I just found that out. He lives in my neighborhood.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's so crazy.
He's probably served you drinks because 'cause I'm not sure he's told you
Probably.
about this, but I reached out to his school and was like, "I wanna hire one of your graduates
Yeah,
because he's amazing," and they didn't write me back or anything, but Bren ended up getting some message I had sent somewhere, and
nice.
he was like, "What do what are you interested in?" I'm like, "Well, do you want to come and join our team and do all the Quake 2 cinematics?"
Yeah,
And he said yes. He just had to quit his job as a bartender first. So
perfect.
that's what I'm saying. Maybe he served you a drink
Yeah,
at the
that's pretty amazing. That's
local
awesome.
watering hole.
So you're going out, that's pretty cool, man. You're going out and seeking these very, niche and specific artists to do a very specific job. But what's
Mhm.
really nice we talked about layoffs earlier in the podcast episode, but, like, you're able to keep these people on for the next project, shift them around, using their talents elsewhere. I really like that ecosystem that you've created. I mean, we don't have to get into it a ton, but did you just want to speak on your philosophy on that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that everybody that's joined Night Dive or has been a part of it offers something very unique. Like you said, whether it's engineering skills or art skills or design skills or just a particular love for this era of games.
Totally.
And so when we do find people and they join us, they tend to stick around for a really long time. I think over the last like 11 years, we've had just a few people leave, and
Mhm.
many of them have come back. So I think that speaks to not only the culture, but just the kind of work that we do. It's very valuable, and it's stuff that people, I think, honestly care about.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, game preservation is one aspect of it, but also just, I think working at a place that cares about you and embraces your passions and embraces your skills and that sort of thing, and it's not like you're fitting round pegs into square holes, but more adapting your projects to leverage the skills of your employees, which I think is a really key feature of the company. Because that way you're not just churning through people and wasting a ton of overhead on turnover and that sort of thing. So I think that's big props to you and the admin team on that sort of thing. So
Well, thank
um
you.
yeah, no, it's I mean, it's scary when lots of people get, here and again, we're not a huge mega company, and I would argue that a NDS is like a, you know, even though you're part of Atari, you're taking a grassroots approach to your game development, and I think that's important and special. We're gonna hire someone, we're gonna make sure they stick around, and we're gonna create an atmosphere that people want to stick around in and work in. So, yeah, props to you guys for making that an environment that people want to work in. So, let's keep moving on the Star Wars stuff. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch base? I know offline we chatted. You have a couple show and tell items
Oh yeah.
that we could show off now. A couple things, just little tidbits. It's not every day that you get to show someone, your lightsaber.
Right, right. Well, like I kind of alluded to earlier, this game has just been so instrumental in my love of the games industry and gaming in general. And so whenever there was an opportunity to get anything Dark Forces beyond just the original game, I kind of just grabbed it. And so I've got some custom lightsabers. This is of course from Dark Forces 2.
Yep.
But this is the first lightsaber that Kyle ends up, using, and then there's a second one, which I think he gets it later on in the game after he loses his first one, uh, but they become a little iconic within the fandom, and,
Yeah.
they're just really cool. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that really love, Kyle Katarn's story and, kind of saw it as their version of Star Wars. For me being a kid in the 1990s, the movies had been out,
For a
obviously
while.
for
Yeah.
20, 30 years at that point in time, and they kind of belonged to my dad's generation.
Yep.
And when Dark Forces came out, it was a new story that kind of took place alongside those original stories, and it felt uniquely ours. And the protagonist, while he wasn't fleshed out as well as he could have been maybe in the first game. There was still a lot put into that narrative, and it continued on into the second game, and it did. It kind of truly felt like this is our this is our Star Wars. This is our story. This is our Luke Skywalker, essentially.
Totally. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool to be able to have these games to explore, yeah, some of the not necessarily alternate universe, but just like some of the other nooks and crannies in that world that don't get explored in the movies. I find that really fun. Whether it's yeah, like Dark Forces, I played. Was big on Shadows of the Empire
Mhm.
um, back in the day too. So um, yeah, let's go through a couple sort of fun quick fire questions with regards. Do you have a favorite level in the Dark Forces remaster?
Oh, that's a good question.
You can take a sec to think about it. I can use the power of editing to make it to chop it up.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually come to appreciate A Note City now because when we were developing the game, I played through it probably 50 times.
Hmm.
And once you know what to do, it's
Yeah, it's not that
it's
bad.
not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love any of the levels that take place on the some of the alien worlds, like the one where, gosh, I'm not gonna be able to remember the name, but you see the Dark Trooper for the first time, and you're
Yes.
trying to blow up the mining
The
facility.
mining, it was the mining facility. That's a great
Yeah.
level. It's very expansive, but also has some verticality to it.
Mhm.
Um, the red hue throughout everything is just very ominous too. You know you know you're in an industrial facility. So you said the first person looking around was one of the things you're most proud of. Was there anything else like that the average player might not notice, but you're so happy that it's in there or that you were able to accomplish?
Yeah, well, there are some weird little things that no one would have any idea about.
Let's hear it.
Well, so one of them is an achievement
Okay.
that I got to write. So it's a fun thing that you get to do every once in a while. And at the end of development, you're like, okay, well, you can do these things. What should we call them? What should the icon look like?
Oh, dude, that's
And
my favorite. I love that so much.
yeah, it's just like it's like icing on the cake almost of
Totally.
finishing the game. And on the God, is it the second level? It's the ice planet. And you're walking around on the ice and you're slipping around and you're having to make some of those difficult jumps until you find the cleats.
Yes.
And they're just like kind of tucked over the edge of that one crevasse. And I remember replaying the game for the first time before we started development and being like, who the hell put these things here? Like, how was I supposed to find those? And so I called the achievement, "Who put that there?" And it's a reference to this thing that my uncle always used to say to me. He would just do this really funny thing where he would just kind of blindly like walk into a light pole,
Who
and
put
he'd look
that?
at me and he'd go, "Who put that there?" Something funny. And it just reminded me of him.
That's
He
awesome,
passed
dude.
away a number of years ago, so that was kind of like my little, homage
Homage
to
to him.
those
Oh,
good
man, that's
memories. Yeah.
amazing. What a cool story. What a cool achievement to have in there. And to be fair, I did not remember where the cleats were when I started recording for the trailer. So I spent a lot of time in that ice level slipping around. What's your but besides Dark Forces, but do you have a favorite Star Wars thing, whether it's a game, book, comic, movie? Do you have another one that you're like, that's I love that.
I mean, it's gonna sound cliched, but Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. Um, Part of the thrill of that game was being subscribed to PC Gamer and seeing the previews come out.
Yeah.
Because again, like I didn't have internet, so
Yep.
this was my way of getting gaming news. Was waiting for this magazine to show up in my mailbox. And seeing the ads and the interviews and the new screenshots and everything like that just drove me absolutely wild. And
It's a big
I
jump though
remember
too, going from Dark Forces 1 to Dark Forces 2. Like,
yeah, a whole new engine, a whole
yeah.
new generation of graphics,
Yep.
a lot of challenges for that team to overcome, and then, when it came out, my local, electronics boutique had, like, a midnight release party for it. It was
Nice.
at least to me, it seems so anticipated. And, I remember my parents brought me to it to buy the game, and, they had that whole wall, it's like a 12-foot high wall, and it's just covered with all the big boxes,
Yeah.
and I was the only one there.
What?
Yeah.
That
So, yeah,
oh,
they
that's
they bought
crazy.
me the game, and I went home, and they let me install it at, like, 1 o'clock in the morning on a school night, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, you can play for, like, an hour, and then you have to go to bed." And, I install it and I'm watching those cinematics. Again, the live action
Yeah.
stuff was, you'd come to realize it was the first live action Star Wars footage shot since Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
So it felt like you were watching a Star Wars movie.
That's pretty
And I
crazy.
remember my mom and dad, like, hovering around our like 17-inch CRT, watching this with me and just being blown away. But
Amazing.
then the game started and it was so uh the frame rate was so bad
Yeah.
because it
Funky.
was in software mode.
Yep.
And we didn't have a 3D accelerator because I'm still on the computer that we bought
Yep.
when Dark Forces came out.
You and most people would have been in that situation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. 3D accelerator was a luxury item
Yeah.
for hardcore gaming
Yeah.
enthusiasts back then.
You had to call
And I
Voodoo VFX back in the day. Voodoo
the
graphics cards.
3DS. Yep. And so, I remember going to the video options and seeing that Direct 3D option grayed out, and it
Yeah.
was just such a tease.
Yeah.
And I had waited years for the game that came out, but had decided, I want to enjoy this properly. And for the next like 3 months, I mowed lawns every day, and I put that money towards a Voodoo One 3D effects
Yes.
accelerator.
That's
And
what I'm talking about, dude.
I
True
mean,
gamer. True
This was
gamer.
this was commitment, and, my parents at the time were like, "Why are you that you bought, like, a computer chip with all that money? Like, what is this for? How do you even get it in there?" And, I just figured it out. I opened up the computer, I installed it, I,
Yep.
put the VGA cable into it, booted up the game, and oh my god, the
Yeah.
feeling of being able to click that direct 3D option
Oh my
or
goodness.
glide or OpenGL or whatever,
Yeah.
and then seeing it go from a slideshow to this silky smooth game. I mean, it's giving me chills now just thinking about it. I mean, I'm a huge nerd, but that's my nerd cred, man.
Oh
Yeah,
man, what a great story. Mowing lawns, getting the Voodoo One, playing Star Forces 2. I love it, dude. That's a
yeah.
that's a great way to end on. Before we send you off, was there anything else you wanted to say or touch base on with regards to Star Wars Dark Forces?
Just that I am overwhelmingly, just pleased with how the game came out, how it's received, all the people that have been messaging us and leaving us notes and stuff on YouTube and Twitter about how much they're enjoying revisiting the game, and I mean, this is what it's all about for us, is bringing these old games back for people to enjoy and hopefully to be inspired to make their own games.
Yep.
So, yeah, thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, I know it's a very important and special game to many people, both you and I included. So I really appreciate you coming and chatting with me and giving us a little peek into the development and into your Star Wars fandom. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, man, anytime.